might be a few kicks or punches thrown, but there's a good distance here, so we have enough space. So no worries. Since the age of 5 years old, I've dedicated my entire life to becoming a world-class martial artist. That was my ambition. That was my dream, my goal. At age 31, I did it. And I'm sure glad someone took a picture because I will never be that shredded again in my life. That was 26 years of hard work, 26 years of living my passion, and 26 years of believing in myself no matter what obstacles I face along the way. 2006, I signed a 3-fight deal with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC, the home of the world's best fighters. 4 months later, I lost it all. Ambition can be a double-edged sword. It can help you achieve amazing things. But if you let it get out of control, it can destroy your life. Let me tell you my story. I started training martial arts when I was 5 years old under my father, Rick Joslin. He was 3-time Canadian champion. He ran our martial arts school since the 1960s. I trained for a few years. I don't think I was very good. I remember getting beat up at a karate tournament and crying under the bleachers for 20 minutes when I was 7 or 8. I have some good memories, though. I remember we did a demonstration as a team, and we went out afterwards for ice cream. And the worker there saw I had my uniform on. I was just a little kid. He said, "Hey, kid, if you can kick my hand, I'll give you a free ice cream." I'm like, "Free ice cream?" My leg shot up, bam, kicked it. Free ice cream for me. That was a lot of fun. And I remember back then I always wanted to play hockey. My friends were all playing hockey at the time. I was watching on TV, loving it. And I'm Canadian. What are we going to do? We're going to play hockey. So my parents encouraged me, and I played for many years. And I did pretty well, but I wasn't overly ambitious about it. Probably played to my mid to late teens. My father was my superhero growing up. He was a beast of a man. He had this 1970s mustache that would intimidate all my friends and myself, my brothers and I were very scared. And he had accomplished so much in business and in martial arts. I just wanted to be like him so badly. I wanted to follow in his footsteps, but truthfully back then, it seemed like an impossible task. Cool part about having a ninja for a dad, though, was everybody's afraid of him. So nobody picked on me growing up. I didn't have to do anything. Until high school, an older guy started bothering me, started giving me attitude. I had this really unique LA Raiders jacket I got in Buffalo. Nobody else had it. And he wanted to steal it from me. I heard rumors. In the hallway, he would grab grade 9s, pick them up, and throw them into me like projectiles. They would smash into me, and he would keep walking. I was like, whoa, that was slick. I wasn't sure what to do. But I felt a fight coming on with this guy, and it made me afraid. It made me afraid for the first time in my life. I was scared. I was scared to get beat up, obviously. I was scared to get embarrassed in front of my friends. And I was most of all scared to go home and see my dad and tell him, "Dad, I lost a fight." So I started training again. We lived on top of the martial arts dojo. In our basement was a kickboxing ring, heavy bags, the whole setup. So I went down at night. I didn't even tell my dad, hitting the bags, doing some of the stuff when I was a small kid, trying to remember it because I felt scared. I was going to fight this guy. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, we had to throw down in the middle of my high school cafeteria. I was sitting down. He came flying in. He kicked me right in the face. Boom. I was up on my feet. Just like I practiced, pop, right in the face. I'm like, yes. He tackles me. We roll around on the ground. Teachers broke it up. I'll call that a draw. I will take a draw. I was happy with that. I was like, thankfully it's over. But this inspired me to keep training, to be the best martial artist I could be, to try to be like my dad. Problem is I didn't have much skill at the time. So I set my goal very small at first. It was, Jeff, I remember it clearly, do not embarrass the family name. But I just started training class after class, and 6 months in, I won my first tournament back, and I squashed those old memories of me crying under the bleachers. Fast forward 4 years, I won 200 first places and a bunch of titles along the way. I was living my passion. I was loving every moment of it. And there's a quote that I love that is so true. You are what you think about all day long. And I was thinking about martial arts every single minute of the day. And it was around that time when there was a buzz about a new martial arts event, an extreme event called the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And there was a Brazilian fighter, an unassuming 170-pound Brazilian fighter named Royce Gracie, who was winning all the Ultimate Fighting Championships without throwing a punch. How could you win a fight without throwing a punch? The whole martial arts world was thrown upside down, including myself. Royce Gracie was grabbing guys by the leg, tripping them on the floor, getting on top of them. For some reason, they couldn't get the small guy off him. He'd slap him in a chokehold. They would tap out because they're about to go unconscious. He'd get them in a leg lock, arm lock. It would break their limb, but they're tapping out and giving up. And he was doing a martial art called Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I was a striker. I want to see Royce get knocked out. Come on, somebody punch this guy out so we can get on with regular life and not worry about this grappling art. But I was first exposed to Brazilian jiu-jitsu when one of my students brought a VHS, old school videotape. Some of you might remember those. And it was a Gracie brother showing techniques. I said, yeah, I'll take a look. I watched for 3 minutes of that tape, and it was magical. The techniques were based on leverage, not strength. A small person could defeat a big person. They were fun, easy to learn. So I started practicing 3 hours a day, every day. I'd use a new student every day because they didn't want to train as hard as me. And I did this. I didn't go out much of the time. I didn't have a girlfriend. But I had jiu-jitsu. And that was all a young man needed, in my opinion. So I took all the techniques from the videos and I started creating my own book to teach myself. It grew to over 800 pages. That was my manual. That was my sensei. It was kind of embarrassing. I had to bow to the book every time I went by it, but it was a lot of fun. So I did this for many years. In 2002, I won the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Pan American Championship, the second largest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament in the world. No Canadian had ever won a medal at it. And I won the gold that year. And it was at that point that I realized my grappling game was catching up to my striking game and I needed a new ambition, a new challenge. Where could I put it all together? I was thinking to myself, ultimate type fighting. MMA was called mixed martial arts. I can do this. So I signed the dotted line. 3 months later, I was in Montreal, Quebec for my first fight, and I was scared out of my mind. I remember thinking to myself, Jeff, why did you sign this paper and now you have to fight this guy in a cage tomorrow? It was a ring at that time, actually. And I felt nervous. I saw my opponent. He was taller, bigger. I'm like, I'm out. I'm not doing this. But then I saw my friend from Hamilton across the room, and he came up to me. I calmed down a little bit. He says, Jeff, I've never seen you so nervous before. I was like, I didn't say this, but I was thinking, bro, what are you doing? You don't say this to someone who has to fight someone tomorrow. Instead, I just smiled. I high-fived him. Good to see you, buddy. And I went back to the dressing room. But I managed to warm up, muster the courage to get in there. And I won by knockout in the very first round in 2 minutes. What a feeling. I was a real fighter. I was a real fighter. I did it. I won my first 4 fights by knockout. And then I faced adversity for the very first time in my career. It was a fight in Gatineau, Quebec, Freedom Fight MMA, against future number 2 fighter on the entire planet, John Fitch. First round of this fight, I was winning. I hit him with a jab. Boom, I caught one of his kicks. I threw him down. I was ground and pounding him. Ooh, it was fun. I was winning. I was doing great. Then I got caught with an illegal headbutt, which broke my nose, knocked my 2 front teeth out, and sent me flying to the canvas unconscious. Somehow I woke up halfway to the canvas, and I saw John Fitch's shadow coming to pummel me in the ground. I'm like, whoa. I tied him up. All my instincts, all my training kicked in, and somehow I managed to survive to the end of the round. It was close. Not going to lie. By the time the 3rd round came, I could feel John Fitch getting tired. I could feel him breaking, and I could hear him breathing heavy, and I thought to myself, nobody, absolutely nobody knocks my teeth out. It's a true story. Weird things go. When you're fighting, weird things go through your head. So I turned it up on him, and I came out strong. I threw a jab at him. Boom, I wanted him to jab back. It's a bit of a trap. I said, come on, Fitch, jab me. And he did it. Boom, I slipped his punch. I came back, uppercut, hook, cross hook, all 4 punches landed on his face, full power. Stumbled back in the corner. His demeanor changed in an instant. He looked at me and the referee, and he called it timeout. Timeout. I won the fight. I stepped back. You can't call it timeout when someone punches you in the mouth. Referee steps in, gives John Fitch a 2-minute timeout. He's walking around, checking his lip. They bring the cornerman in. He's talking to the cornerman, deciding if he wants to continue fighting again. After 2 minutes, he says, yeah, I'll continue fighting. I'm all over him the end of the round, trying to finish him off. He's a tough guy. Trying to finish him off, the buzzer goes. I remember, we were down in the grappling exchange on the ground, and I was on the mat like this. And I reached up, and I felt my mouth, and my teeth were gone. Then I went to wipe the sweat off my face. It wasn't sweat. It was all blood. I got up, extremely proud of myself. Crowd's going, Joslin, Joslin. It was a very magical moment for me. I'm so excited. I get my hand up in the air, getting ready. All of a sudden, the referee pushes my hand down and raises John Fitch's hand up. What just happened? The top 5 rip-offs in MMA history. It's on YouTube. You can check it out. But the best part about it is John Fitch went on to the UFC and beat 8 guys in a row, tying the record for most wins ever in the sport. And fought 5 rounds with George St. Pierre, the current champion, and went the distance. So this is a great measuring stick for me. If I can make this guy quit, give up, and then he beats all these guys and goes the distance with a champ, I can do this. I just have to get there. I just have to keep pushing. I have to keep working. So I got back to training, tried out for the Ultimate Fighter reality show twice. Almost made it. Just wasn't the right fit for the show. Not gonna lie, that was one of the most disappointing moments in my life. I wanted to be on that show so badly. Had to sit down with my wife at that point, decide if I was going to retire or continue fighting. I had obviously no front teeth. I had 20 injuries since my wife met me. She stuck it out. I was making 0 money, 2 kids to raise, and I couldn't catch a break in the sport. Now, obviously, I took to heart everything we talked about, but it accidentally went in one ear and out the other because I'm fighting. There's no question. This is not how it's going to end. So I get back to training, and 6 months later, I won the Apex World Welterweight Championship. My opponent was a veteran fighter who had never been knocked out in 26 fights, and I knocked him out cold in less than 2.5 minutes of the very first round. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was the UFC. They wanted me to fight Josh Koscheck. Now, Josh Koscheck was a rising star in the UFC, arguably the best wrestler in the entire sport, and he had been knocking everybody out with punches, so the whole division said, no, I'm not fighting you. They're not fighting him. And this gave me my chance. And at this point in my life, I felt I could fight any man on the planet. So we took it right away. A month later, I was in San Diego for UFC Fight Night 7, Miramar base, 5,000 Marines. They said 5,000 Marines were louder than 30,000 regular people, and I was the bad guy, and he was American. Ooh, it was intense. I still remember my first steps in that UFC octagon cage. Huge smile on my face, sitting there smiling. And this could be one of the most scary places on earth if you're unprepared, but for me, it felt like a kid running into Disneyland for the very first time. I will never forget that moment. Fight started, I came out strong. I hit him with the jab, smack. That was my best weapon, unstoppable at the time. Hit him again, pop. Blood trickles down his eye. He threw a couple haymakers, tried to knock me out like he did the other guys. I'm like, bro, it's not happening. I can see these coming a mile away. I got a little cocky. I said, this guy's kind of slow, bouncing on my toes. All of a sudden, boom, he's on my legs, picking me up and slamming me into the canvas. I'm okay. He's a great wrestler. And I changed my base up a little bit. I won the striking exchanges. He won the wrestling exchanges on the ground. We kind of nullified each other. My jiu-jitsu kept me safe on the bottom of all my experience. He has good jiu-jitsu on top, very hard to move. But I went 3 rounds. He won the decision, but I felt amazing. I felt so excited for my second UFC fight. It was a good time. That fight never came. I sustained an injury in training, a concussion. Now, if you've never had a concussion before, you have to imagine the worst hangover you've ever had in your life that you pray goes away the next morning, and then it stays for more than 2 years straight. I went to the doctor, neurologist. I said, Doc, just got to UFC, achieving my dreams. Everything's going good. I'm so happy. When can I fight again? Neurologist says, well, Mr. Joslin, let's just see how long it takes for you to get better, and then your decision will be made. I'm like, decision? What are you talking about? My decision, it's already made. I'm fighting. 2 years later, when I was still recovering, I was driving to Tim Hortons, and I missed it. So I spun the car around and I headed back. And I missed it again. And it was at that point in my life I realized I would never, ever fight again. And a piece of me died in that moment. I started drinking, partying with my friends, replaced the high. Get attention from so many strangers just to feel good about myself. I remember the final straw. I went home drunk after the bar one night, and I was yelling at my wife, because I'd become a jealous person. I had to see myself. I couldn't see myself as a fighter. I had to see myself as a regular person. I hated myself. I was a monster in the cage, but in life, I was nothing. Why would my wife want to be with nothing? Again, the jealousy. It was unbearable, the pain that it created in me. I used to pray my wife would cheat on me just so I didn't have to worry she would cheat on me. Remember the final straw? Went home one night drunk, yelling at my wife. My little son, probably 10 years old, came flying in the room, tried to calm me down, tried to tell me to stop yelling at his mommy. And I turned and I snapped on him and I yelled in his face. And I will never forgive myself for that moment. I woke up the next day feeling like garbage. Decided to change my life then and there. I quit drinking on the spot. I started reading books about becoming a better person, better husband, better father. I started talking to my wife. 10 years of marriage, I didn't talk to her because I was too busy being ambitious. I asked her how her day was. She talked for 20 minutes straight. I'm not going to lie. She was a cool chick. It felt like a new girlfriend. But I slowly put my life back together and learned the skills I never learned because I was locked inside this tunnel towards one destination, this addictive and intoxicating and all-consuming tunnel that I never would have broken free from if I hadn't gotten injured. I used all the skills I learned in a lifetime of martial arts to fix my life, save my family, and build my martial arts business that I proudly inherited from my father. I had the desire to do it, the work ethic, no question. I would do whatever it takes. And I had a belief, a deep belief inside me that there's no way my life was going to fall apart because I didn't even try. My ambition wouldn't let it. My ambition would not let me fail. My greatest accomplishment wasn't when I stepped inside the UFC octagon cage for the very first time. It was when I woke up and truly realized what matters most in my life. And that's my amazing family. Thank you.